We're going to go look at a world-ling right now, a world-ling. In Mark, the 5th chapter, Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5. I want you to look at this guy very carefully. And I want you to transform this man into the world today. Okay? I want you to transform this and just see what kind of behavior we have in the world today. The Gadarene demoniac, the Gadarene, the region of the Gadarenes. I've got double problems this morning, low blood sugar, and I had that stroke too. So I pray for me. I'm having trouble. All right. Gad means a gift or fortune. Surplus. Gad. There it is in Hebrew right there. Gad means gift or fortune. And this is the area that the descendants of Gad had. In this area, there was a city there, actually 10 cities, called Decapolis, the 10 cities. Decapolis. And this is where this man's going to become a missionary, Brother Montana. This Gadarene demoniac is going to become a missionary. Okay, he's going to go to this area. And if you don't have one of those Doctrines of the Bible book, I have some of those out here. And I want you to turn to the lesson on hell. We're going to go to the second page on the lesson on hell, and that in just a few moments if we get there. This man, I want you to look at him. Now, he had a personality change. A complete personality change. He exhibited extreme antisocial behavior. All right, extreme antisocial behavior. He had great spiritual power over him. And that spiritual power was in permanent control of him. This spiritual power was in permanent control over him. All right? And he had superhuman strength. Superhuman strength. And number 5, he was tormented. He was tormented. Number 6, he was self-destructive. Self-destructive. Now, just saying that, did anything happen this last week with all of these points of behavior? Did anything happen this last week in America with all of these points of behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shooting? All right. Same thing. Same power. The same power. The same power that was over this man 2,000 years ago is loose in America and in Iran and Afghanistan and in Israel and all over the world today. There are plenty of spiritual powers to go around. And this is not the last of it either. You will see it. In the last days, you will see a great amount of spiritual power poured out on human flesh. Okay? A great amount of supernatural power. And a personality change. He had antisocial behavior. He had great permanent spiritual power control over him. He had superhuman strength. He was tormented. And he was self-destructive. And he would kill anybody that came near him. All right? This is a Gadarene demoniac. What better class could we have had for this day? To wake us up to what's going on in the world today. All right? Mark the 5th chapter. Mark the 5th chapter. In the book of Genesis, we had the first spiritual empowered person. that was a great leader, wasn't he? His name was Cain. He was going to be the heir to the patriarchal position of Adam when he died. And what did he do to his brother that was no threat to him at all? Huh? He murdered him. That wasn't enough. In Hebrew, what did he do to his brother? You people that have studied Hebrew with me. What did he do to his brother?
He cut him multiple times.
He slashed him. And literally, he disemboweled him. He tore him apart. He slashed him. He cut him up in little pieces. He was like Jack the Ripper in the Garden of Eden, basically. He didn't go along with just cutting his throat. He slashed and he slashed and he slashed and he slashed. Overkill. All right? This is the extreme that you see in these spiritual powers. How many of you know the oldest DNA or cultural people? Have you ever heard of the Bodo people in South America? In Brazil specifically. Bodo. The Bodo people down there were natives. They say that they were the oldest DNA on this continent, on the American continent. They were the original, you see these people wearing plugs in their ears today? They were the original pluggers. They had plugs in their ears and saucers in their lip. All right, they lived down in Brazil, and they would not be conquered by the Catholic Church. The Portuguese went down there and tried to take over and completely, what they did was they went down, they started missions. You know what a mission is? A mission is a slave plantation. All right? To produce money for the mother church in Rome. They went down there and they could not conquer these Bodo people, so they decided to put a 100-year campaign to annihilate all of them. They're going to kill them all. They're going to do ethnic cleansing. They're going to do genocide because they would not conform to their standards. This is history. All right? There are very few of them left. There are no pure Bodo people left. They pretty much murdered all of them. They're pretty much all gone. Religious intolerance is demonic, is it not? If you find somebody, Brother Mike is a pretty good theologian. He denies it all the time. But he's got a mind like a tar bucket. He's been in my classes for years. And Brother Mike, if you went and you started talking to a Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon or something like that, if they didn't convert to you, would you take out one of your pistols and blow their brains out? No. Now, what would you do? Pray for them. Pray for them. Brother Donnie, would you, if you met somebody on your job and they were a Catholic or some other religion than you, and you couldn't get them converted, what would you do to them? Pray for them. Now, if they were Catholics, like down in Bodo people, if they had the power today, you know what they'd do to you? They would slice your throat, or they'd baptize you and make you a member of that church. That's what we call antisocial behavior. In all reality. Okay, that's the problem. Let's go back and look at this for just a minute. What this man exhibited. A great personality change from when that he was born. Antisocial behavior. Spiritual powers. Spiritual powers that had permanent control over him. Superhuman strength. He was tormented. He was unhappy. He was miserable. And he was self-destructive. He was self-destructive. 5. Let's look at it. And they came on the other side of the sea into the country of the Gerasenes. It's called Gadarenes in King James, I believe. All right? It's that Gad means fortune. All right, fortune or wealth. These were warlike people in Joshua 12 and verse 6 and Genesis 49:19. If you want to go back and look at the history of these people. And we didn't come out of the boat immediately. Eustace, here's that word again, immediately. The writer, Mark, just loves that word Eustace, and he loves the imperfect tense. And immediately he came out of the boat. A man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. Man from the tombs with an unclean spirit. Here we have the master, the king, the Lord of the graveyard. That's the title of the message, the Lord of the graveyard. He's the master, he's the king, he's the king of the graveyard. The king of the infernal regions. All right? Now turn in your little book, Doctrines of the Bible, over on page number 15. All right? And let's look a little bit about the region of hell. Let's just talk about words for hell. Okay? Words from the original languages pertaining to hell and paradise. Sheol. Sheol. All right, Sheol. What does Sheol mean? The place asked about. Thank you, Brother John. You got an A+ for today. Doctors ought to do that, you know. They ought to get A+.
Finally.
All right. Psalm 16 and 10, Psalm 86, 13, and Proverbs 23, 14, Judges 8 and 24. And Brown, Briver, and Briggs on page 982. Also Deuteronomy 32, 22, and Proverbs 7, 27. All cross-reference to this word right here, Sheol, the place asked about. Now we're going to be introduced to this place Sheol, okay? Now remember, back at this period of time, someplace down below the earth, it said. Someplace there was a place called Sheol or Hades. And on one side was paradise, on the other side was a place of torments. Torments. Okay? And there was a gulf in between. Now, some bad spirits and bad angels, probably out of Michael's realm, many theologians believe, are chained up in those places because they were so spiritual power. We have Michael, we have Gabriel, and we have who? Lucifer as the archangels or the head angels. All right? The Bible even calls Lucifer even a cherubim. A cherubim. All right? And a seraphim. All right? Seraphim means what? In Hebrew. There's a lot of good stuff in Hebrew. Seraphim means burning, blazing. All right? And Jesus said in Luke, he said that he saw Lucifer fall from heaven as a what? As a blazing bolt of lightning in destruction. All right? And Lucifer means what? Light carrier. Light carrier. All right. Hell. Hades. Hades is the Greek equivalent of the Hebrew Sheol. Hades is a place not seen. It means not seen. Ah and Dale. The place of the departed spirits, same as Sheol in Hebrew. Revelation 1:18, Luke 6:26 and verse 23, Matthew 16 and 1, and Thayer, page 11. If you'll look it up in Thayer's lexicon. Now we come to the word Tartarus. 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 And this Tartarus evidently is it's like a maximum security prison within Sheol. All right? Like a maximum security. It's like lockdown. This place is solitary confinement, so to speak. Maximum security prison. Tartarus. It means a pit of gloom. Pits of thick darkness, sophon scotia, like quicksand. To hold captive the very dangerous in chains of darkness. There, page 615 and 2 Peter 2 and 4, and also it speaks of this in the book of Jude. Tophet. 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 We got Tartarus, and now we got Tophet. Tophet. Tophet was an altar in the valley of Hinnom. And any altar By the way, remember, you know how you go down the road here and you see people that have these little monuments on the side of the road where somebody met their maker? That's where the Spirit left, okay? That's where the Spirit left them. And they'll go put a monument where they died, okay? Every pagan altar is a place of death. Every pagan altar is a place of death. But I'm going to tell you something. When people give themselves over to the powers of Satan, that is a place of death. We saw that in one individual that killed 28 people this last week. That was influenced by the same powers that this fella here was victim to. Okay? And it's all over. Expect a whole lot more of this, people, because these powers are rampant and wild. The demons that were in him will go to somebody else. They go on. They live on. The demons that were in the Gadarene demoniac are still loose today. They're still loose today. Wandering, seeking human or animal flesh to dwell in and people to convert, to control. Tophet was an altar in the valley of Hinnom. Brown Driver Briggs, page 1075, and Jeremiah 17:31, and 2 Kings 23 and verse 12. Tophet, a place of human sacrifice. How many of you ever heard about fire walking? Fire walking. All right, they do that in India, don't they? They do that in different places in the world, and they go into spiritual trances, and they walk where fire does not bother them. The Bible says that the Lord was very unhappy with people that caused their children to walk through the fire. Well, do you know what it's talking about? Well, they could have sacrificed them there, but to get them, some of these people wanted their children to be great spiritual priests of the underworld. And then they became fire walkers. They walked on fire. Anytime you see this kind of thing going on in the world, that's spiritual powers from the other side, from the other world. Paradise, of course, paradiso, that comes all the way from Persia, in the Hebrew, in the Greek, in the English. Paradise. Paradise means a guarded pleasure park. That's this side, over here, this paradise side. All right? And the grave. The grave is a memorial place. Menemion. All right? Or Tathe. Quiver in Hebrew. It is a place where this man lived. He lived among dead bodies. You know, dead bodies stink. I don't know whether you know that or not, but they really stink. A graveyard, if they were open, the graves were opened like they were back then, it is a place of great stench. This is where this man chose to live. A person in his right mind would not choose to live in a place of great stench. Right? Marilyn's dad one time worked down in Los Angeles, I believe it was, near a slaughterhouse, where you smell the blood and all this stuff all the time. A place of great strength. Now we look at the word abyss. All right, but abysson. Abysson means no bottom, the bottomless pit. The abode of demons, there, page 2. Romans 10:17, Luke 8:31, and Revelation 9:1. I want you to remember this one thing too. The rabbinical commentators said that the bottom of the Sea of Galilee was the very gates of Tophet and of the abyss and of the regions of hell. Okay? And we have the word hellfire. The continual fires in the valley of Gehinnom, the valley of Hinnom, valley of Hinnom. Eternal hell. Mark 9:47. Thayer, page 111. Matthew 5:22 and 10:28, 23 and 15. Luke 12 and 5, and Mark 9:43 and 47. Then the lake of fire, hellfire, we have Gehenna, and Limnan tu Pirus, the lake of fire. When Hades and hell ends, the lake of fire begins, which is the second death. Revelation 20, 12 through 15. Revelation 20, 12 through 15, the lake of fire. Now let's go back. We looked at that little thing. Now let's go back to the gospel according to Mark. Let's look at this poor man. He has had a great personality change. He has antisocial behavior. He has spiritual powers and permanent control over him. He has superhuman strength, and he is tormented. He is very unhappy, and he's self-destructive, and he tries to destroy everyone that comes in contact with him. When he had come out of the boat, a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. And he kept on having his dwelling among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him. He had superhuman strength. They weren't able to bind him anymore, even with a chain. Not able to bind him, even with a chain. Outlaws used to have chains on them. They had a blacksmith coming along. Brother Mike, have you've been to Fort Smith, Arkansas? Did you see that tumbleweed wagon there where they used to carry this? In the movie True Grit, there was a wagon that they used to. It was a portable jail, is what it was. They put prisoners in it. They only put prisoners in the wagon that were not able to walk. I want you to know that. My great-great-grandfather, Sam Paul, Tecumseh McClure, my uncle, and Fred Waite, my cousin, when they arrested them for the so-called murder of the Hawkins boy back there. He was a white outlaw, by the way, and part of one of the most desperate criminal gangs of the day. Not putting anything on you, brother.
I know. Yeah, a bunch of horse thieves.
Anyway, they're the horse thieves and the Stuttgart gang and the Ross gang and all of them. Well, anyway, they arrested my grandfather, and they arrested his brother, and they arrested his nephew, Fred Waite, which was part of the Lincoln County War. Okay? And they got to walk 180 miles to Fort Smith, Arkansas in chains. They got out there, and they got a blacksmith out there with an anvil and with hot rivets, and they'd put these manacles on their legs and on their arms, and they'd take them and put a rivet in there, and then they'd pound it shut. And it would be tied to a chain. They got to walk that 180 miles in chains. At nighttime, they would take them out there. Of course, the prisoners that were riding in the Tumbleweed Express, that crossbar hotel on wheels, they got to sit in there. Of course, it was hot and mosquito-ridden all over the place. Fred Waite later died of malaria. Remember what that was? What was the mosquitoes that did that? Anopheles quadrimiculatus, okay? And remember, there's 4 kinds of malaria. He probably had valsiprin, which was one of the worst. And the complications of it. Well, they were bitten with mosquitoes all the way to Fort Smith, Arkansas. And they were chained to trees along the way. They had trees that had chains around them, and they'd lock them up with locks and have all these prisoners chained around these trees. For 180 miles they got to walk. Okay? Let's go on now. They couldn't bind him with chains. Not even with a chain. No one was able to bind him. No one had the power to bind him any longer, even with chains. Verse number 4, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart. They kept on being torn apart by him, and the shackles were torn in pieces, just rent. No one was strong enough to subdue him. They couldn't get enough people to subdue him. They couldn't get an armed guard strong enough to subdue him. It's going to be not too long if they got good sense. They're going to have armed guards at every school. armed guards at every school. How many lives would that have saved the other day if they'd had an armed guard there? That's a terrible extra expense. Armed guards. When you got somebody that you can't control, what do you have to do to them? Put them down permanently. They couldn't put this man down permanently. They wasn't anybody strong enough to subdue this man. You know, spiritual powers. I told you about meeting that Bigfoot, some of you. How many of you have not heard that story? Anybody not heard that story about the Bigfoot? I met that thing up there in the wilds of Nevada.
When you saw through the windshield or something?
I saw him walking across the desert out there and then across the road in front of me, and I tell you what, it scared the daylights out of me. And I have been in the woods and killed bear and lions and everything else you can think of.
It could have been a demonic something, not a Bigfoot.
I think that they are something with spiritual power.
Yeah, not a Bigfoot.
But a Bigfoot, they are Bigfoots, but they have some spiritual power. And the people that done research on them say that they have spiritual powers. Same spiritual powers that were back here at the Gadarene tombs, okay? The same spiritual power. All right? They couldn't find him. And constantly, night and day, among the tombs, in the mountains, he was crying out and gashing himself, slicing himself with stones, beating himself up. Many times, people that are mentally ill and demon-possessed will try to destroy him, self-destructive. What's that what he was doing? Self-destruction. After this man killed all these people the other day, what did he do? Self-destruct. Self-destruct. This is demonic behavior. And seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran down and he fell down prostrated before him. He just kept on sitting down there and he kept on crying out with a loud voice. It says the voice of a bull ox. Like a big bullfrog croaking. How many of you have ever been out on the rivers where they hear this big voice? Big voice. The bullfrog, it carries a long way. How many of you ever been out when the cows are bawling? And you hear them for a long, long way. A bawling cow. Crying out with a loud voice. What I have to do with you, O Jesus. How many of you ever hear a wolf howl in the wilderness?
I heard coyotes.
Or a wolf's got a deeper voice. They'll put chills up your spine when you're out there in the middle of nothing. Wolves. A lot of wolves. When I was up in the White Mountains one time, Jerry Bunting and I were driving horses through foot traps, and I was down in the bottom of Trail Canyon, and I was on my little horse Rocket. Red Rocket was his name. I trained him he was a little Morgan stud, and I was driving these wild horses through these foot traps. We'd take this was brand new, plastic dish pans, you know, that they would wash dishes in. And we'd cut a square, an X in the bottom of them, and we'd bury them in the dirt, and then we'd put a loop over the top of them, a lariat, a soft cotton lariat, and we'd tie it to a log or something, and we'd drive these horses over these places, and we'd put them right over where they step over a rock or a log or something, and so they step in it, the thing would catch on their foot, and they start thrashing around, and the rope would tighten up, and then we could catch them easier. They could lasso them and rope them. And we'd have to get them from at least two different directions because, boy, they'll come right on top of you. Hooves and teeth. But anyway, we were driving these horses up through there. And down in the bottom, I looked up there. Jerry was going to come up behind me. He was on foot. He wanted to go with me. And he said I can run real good. He was a real runner and everything. He lived down, if you go in the Fish Lake Valley, I think it's Highway 264, at the old road maintenance station there. That's where he lived. He went up there to Trail Canyon with me. He had his dad bring him up there, and he was going to help me drive these horses through. And I was up on the hill coming back over the other direction. And a big bunch of mule deer came up there. I mean, this one deer had a rack on him, but it was like this big, it looked like. About 6 points on each side, just a big old mule deer. And we went over this hill, and I looked down there, and I saw Jerry Bundy coming up the trail behind me to get any stragglers that had got off to chase them through the tracks. My stepdad always gave me a gun with one bullet. One bullet. I had a pistol with one bullet. That's the way he did me. Anyway, Jerry, he's coming up the trail there. I see him down there, and I see some cattle laying down there. I saw a cow and a calf, and was a red calf and a black calf, I thought. And anyway, Jerry, he's coming up the road. And I mean, it's probably 8,000 feet or 9,000 feet down there, and I'm up at 13,000 feet. That's what the elevation is. I'm at 13,000 feet. He's at about 8,000 or 10,000 feet. And I came over the hill, and I just looked down there before I went over the other hill. It was blocked there where I couldn't see down in the valley, and I went over this hill. It was a trail, a wild Mustang trail is what I was riding on this ridge, Mustang Mountain. When I got on the other side, there's Jerry, right there. Just going like that. I said, "What's the matter, Jerry?" He said, "Did you see that wolf?" He said, "That wolf growled at me and snarled, and just like a lion or something growling at me." And I took off, and I didn't look back. He'd run all the way from around 10,000 to 13,000 foot, straight up that mountain almost. And he was there, and I only went about 200 yards, I don't think, on that horseback. He was scared to death. Well, here this man is, he's being tormented, growling like an animal, growling, crying out with a loud voice. "What have I to do with you, Jesus?" What does Jesus mean? What's the name Jesus mean? How do you remember what that name means? You're going to get it right pretty soon. What's Jesus mean? Brother Mike?
God is salvation.
Elijah is God. All right. What does Jesus mean? Jesus. Yahshua. Jehovah saves. That's what his name is. Even when he spoke his name, he said Jehovah saves. You got A+, brother. Son of the Most High God. Son of the Most High God. I implore you, I beg you, do not torment me. Do not put me in those places that we just talked about down here. Hades, Tophet, Abyss. Do not put me down there in that bottomless pit. Do not put me in that bottomless pit. He was loose, wasn't he? He's one of the demons. There's about 2,000 of them, by the way. 2,000 of them are ganged up in this guy. 2,000 of them ganged up in him.
Is that what you call a legion?
What?
Is that
Legion, yeah. He had a whole legion of demons in him. All right? And he's going to say that pretty soon. Do not torment me. Please do not torment me. I beg you, please do not torment me. Verse number 8, for he had been saying to him, he kept on saying to him, "Come out of him, you unclean spirit. Come out of him, the powers of hell." In your computers, when you look at something, it's got properties, doesn't it? You can look at something, it's a picture or whatever, you can look at it and see what kind of properties. Let's look at the properties of hell. The powers of hell. The powers of hell. And he said to him, "My name," and he was asking him, kept on asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, and kept on saying to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he kept on terribly entreating him, earnestly entreating him not to send him out into the country. Out into the country. He was, these demons were happy. They were happy. The demons had a home. You know anybody where demons have a home and they're happy there? Just think about that for a while. Every lost man in this world, every person that is rejecting Jesus Christ has demonic powers over him. And the more he rejects, maybe the more demons will come and dwell. The more she rejects, maybe the more demons will come and dwell. There was a great herd of swine feeding there on the mountainside. And these demons kept on entreating him, saying, "Send us into the swine that we may enter them." Now, Jesus didn't pick out the swine, did he? Did he pick the swine? Did he just intentionally want to torment these swine? Nope. But they were there. They were there. And by the way, these we don't know for sure that these were Jewish people, but they probably were Jewish people that were owned. They owned them. Now, under the Jewish culture, it says what? Don't eat any pigs. But it didn't mean they couldn't make money on them. All right. So whether they were directly or indirectly, they were in control of this region. All right. Whether they were indirectly involved in this and swine herds or not, they were there. Okay. And I have said here a couple of times lately, what was the greatest vehicle of disease in the Americas? The pigs. When the Spanish brought the pigs to America, that was the greatest vehicle of disease in the world. God knew that way back in the Old Testament time, and he said, don't eat them. The Spanish used them, and matter of fact, what was the guy down in South America? What was the two brothers down there in his army? Can't even think of his name. Marilyn, you. What was the guy down? There was Hernando de Soto in the South, and I can't remember the guy down there. What guy down there in South America? What?
Pizarro.
Pizarro. Pizarro. The guy down in South America, Pizarro, was just two brothers down there, and the one brother couldn't get along with his brother, so he kept sending the other brother on military campaigns. And on his military campaigns, in the front of his military campaigns, he had 2,000 hogs. People got disease that never saw a white man because of the pigs. All right, the pigs carried disease. In the South, when Hernando de Soto went among the Chickasaws, and the Chickasaws took care of him all winter long in 1539 and 40, my family was among that. They finally ran him off in the springtime when he wanted to enslave them. That's all they knew. The Catholic Church, they just want to enslave people, you know. You're peons. You are cattle. And we're in control. They whipped him and ran him off and scattered his pigs. Because of the disease and the raping and the pillaging that Pizarro did, or Hernando de Soto did, within 50 years, 50% of the Chickasaws lay dead under the ground from disease. Not swords, bullets, or anything. Pigs. Swine. Said, let us give us permission that we may enter into those pigs. Demons like to dwell in human or animal flesh. This is what we know from the Scripture. They dwell in human or animal flesh. Demons do. All right? They like to dwell in human or animal flesh. They like warm bodies. And he gave them permission. And having come out, the unclean spirits entered the swine. Now, do animals have volition? These did. They did. Just think about the insects and everything and the plagues that were in Egypt. God called the frogs, didn't he? Did the frogs come? The frogs came. He called the crickets, or the grasshoppers, or the locusts, and the locusts came. He called them and they came. And he gave them permission, and coming out of the unclean entered the swine. And the herd rushed for themselves. The herd did. The herd of what? The herd of what? the herd of swine. The herd of swine rushed down the steep bank into the sea. The Sea of Galilee is actually a big lake. And about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned. They jumped off a sheer cliff, and it says that they were suffocated in the water. Now, pigs can swim pretty good. Did you know that? Pigs really swim. Pigs really swim. But these pigs were weighted down with demonic spirits. They were so disturbed. These pigs were so disturbed by being demonically possessed and entered that they drowned. They suffocated. They shouldn't have suffocated. Out in salt, well, now, by the way, the Sea of Galilee is how many feet below sea level? Does anybody know? Several hundred feet below sea level. Did you know that back at this time that there were saltwater springs in the bottom of the Sea of Galilee? And that's why we have the Dead Sea down there, because that salt water would come up out of the sea, because it's coming in from the Mediterranean and going up to the saltwater spring and going down the Jordan River. Jordan means what? Go down. What does it mean? Descending. It descends and goes down to the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place over there, and that's where all the salt water went. If you go out there and you jump in the ocean, you won't sink? Not really, not if you're a woman, because a woman has more fat on them than a man does. All right, you can't make yourself sink. If you go into the Dead Sea, you'll float around out there forever. All right, pigs have a lot of fat on them, don't they? And if you got water in a pan and you put oil in it, where's the oil go? Right to the top. They should not have sunk. Strategically, they should not have sunk, but what caused them to sink? The powers of hell, the demonic powers, they were so disturbed that they couldn't even do something that was so natural for them to do, which was swim. And they choked to death in the water. They choked to death in the water. You take bacon grease and it's going to float on top. That's what's going on here now. There's about 2,000 of them. And they kept on being choked. And those who tended them ran away and reported it to into the city and out in the country, and the people came to see what was all happened here. Now down at the well of Samaria, what happened? Well, a great miracle was performed there by saving of this lost soul that was probably demonically influenced, that woman at the well. There a whole lot of people got saved down there, didn't they? Well, let's look at the different mindset here than down there. Okay? Now these people are what is controlling their interest? M-O-N-E-Y, 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 money. Money and wealth. They were probably making a lot of money selling this swine, this pork, and pork chops to these Romans, because Romans like pigs. Greeks like pigs. All these people like pigs. Pork. Verse number 15, and they came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed, sitting. He wasn't wild anymore, was he? He was set free. He wasn't wild anymore. He was clothed. Having been clothed, and in his right mind. He had his mind back. He could think again. The very man who had had the legion, and they kept on being astonished, is what it says. And they kept on being struck out of their senses. They couldn't understand this. We know who this guy is. This is a murderer. This is a bad guy. Can bad guys get saved? Bad guys get saved every day. Bad girls get saved every day, don't they? They get delivered from the powers and the regions of hell. We go to Luke, the 16th chapter later on when you can. Luke, the 16th chapter, verses 19, 31. And see, visit hell. Visit hell. That's what you call an afternoon in hell. And those who had seen described to them how it had happened to the demon-possessed man and all about the swine. And they kept on begging him to get out of here, leave. What's the deal? What's the difference here? They kept on begging Jesus to leave. Why? They were interested in making money. They weren't interested in Jesus. They weren't interested in being delivered. There were some of these people, probably every one of them had at least one demon in them. And I guarantee you they were externally influenced by demons, or they would say, "Save us, Lord! Set us free, Lord! We got problems too." If you're here today and you got problems, the Lord can set you free. He can set you free. He can. Boy. They kept on begging him. They were materialists. They weren't worried about getting saved. They were worried about keeping their money. How they're going to recoup their profits. Verse number 18. And as he was stepping into the boat, is what it literally says, the man who had been demon-possessed kept on begging him that he might become one of the disciples. That's what he said, that he might become one of the disciples. He wanted to be one of the disciples. He wanted to be a church member. Well, I'm sure they took time to baptize him. And boy, I'm going to tell you something. After he had the demons out of him, I'm sure his head was clear and able to learn. And to gather up all of what had happened to him. What kind of a better witness could there have been? Verse number 19. And he did not let him. He did not allow him. He kept on not allowing him. Said to him, "Go home. Go home to your people and retort to them what things, great things, that the Lord has done, that Jehovah has done for you." He was the Lord of the graveyard. But he met the Lord of heaven. This man was a king, the master, the Lord of the graveyard. But he had met the King of Glory. And Jesus said, "You go tell him what the King of Glory did for the king of the graveyard, for the Lord of the graveyard. You go tell him. And what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you." If you're lost today, the Lord will have mercy on you if you call upon him. If you're lost, you need to be saved because you're in the hands of demons. If you don't know Jesus Christ, you are in the hands of demons. You are. You think that you're doing your own little thing in the world? No, you're not. You're doing the bidding of these powers of hell. The same powers that caused that boy to do what he did in Connecticut are working on you today. They probably kissing cousins, these demon spirits. And those spirits are out looking for someplace else to go now. They're looking for somebody else to empower. And they will find somebody from the east to the west coast, from the north to the south. They will go someplace. They will inhabit human flesh. And they will cause more destruction. And they will cause self-destruction. They will cause anti-social behavior. Verse number 20. And he went off and he kept on proclaiming in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone kept on being struck out of their senses. I've been to Decapolis. I was over there. That's called, Decapolis means what? Deca means what? 10. Polis means what?
Cities.
Cities. 10 cities. We went over there, we went through the region of Jerash, and the Roman road went right through there, by the way. I've been walked down that Roman road. And I could read Greek and Hebrew back in 75 and 76, and they were having me read all these little, got to turn this antique machine over. They were having me read all of this graffiti down, what merchant was here and what merchant was there. And as I walked down that Roman road in that ancient city, I thought about the Gadarene demoniac. And what gift, Gadarene, gift, what gift, what fortune that he had brought to them. They said some of the greatest churches were founded right after the Gadarene demoniac went into the act. He's built churches over there. I have been where some of the church buildings were. Of course, many of them became Catholicism later. But there were churches here. These people preach the Word of God. There's Bible verses all over these places. There's temples of Jupiter, of course, but there was the influence. Not one of those Baptists back then ever killed anybody because they wouldn't believe. And they preached the Word of God, and either they rejected or accepted the Word of God. God will never twist your arm to make you be saved, but He'll woo your spirit with His Spirit. He will woo your spirit with the Spirit of God, and He will call you to Him. He will do that, Brother Art.
Question, can a Christian be oppressed by the devil?
Oh, sure.
How would you define oppressed?
All right, I'm going to tell you how it was. In Matthew, the 16th chapter, we have the great declaration of Peter, don't we? Where he said, "Thou art the Son of the living God." And Jesus said to him, "Oh, the rabbis over there didn't tell you that. Your schooling there in the little synagogue where you went didn't tell you this, but what? The revelation from the Father above through the Spirit of God." Okay? And then what happened right after that when he said he wasn't going to let him go die? He said what to Satan? Satan, what? Satan has filled your heart. You follow me. Whatever I tell you, you better believe it. Because it's going to happen. I am going to go die for you. Oh, no way, Lord. He said, that's Satan working in you. Did Satan work in Peter? Was he a saved man? Was he a baptized man? He was an apostle in one of the Lord's churches. Did Satan bother him? Sure did. Did he deny Jesus outside there, outside Caiaphas' house over there when he was warming his hands by the devil's fire, so to speak? As many old sermons used to preach, many old preachers used to preach, warming your hands at the devil's fire. He was. And he denied his Lord and kept on denying his Lord. He cursed. He did all this. Was he demon oppressed? Was he demon influenced? And Peter also said alone, look, prepare, care for yourselves. Satan, like a roaring lion, seeks whom he may devour. Yeah.
One more question.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of Christians that are struggling with the mind issue with bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. They claim to be Christians, they're going to church, they're reading their Bible, they're active, but yet they have these issues. Will that be considered oppressed?
Probably oppression, yes. But they're also, when you lose an arm, you lost the arm, haven't you? And you know that you're physically impaired. Sometimes people are mentally impaired, brother. Sometimes people have, just like a bad heart, it's still bad. You may get saved, but your heart's still bad. It doesn't fix itself a lot of times. So you have to live with that.
But that wouldn't be called possession, that'd be oppression.
No,
right?
I think some of that is just physical ailments and mental ailments. They're impaired.
Even
All right.
bipolar and stuff like that, couldn't that just be a chemical imbalance?
It can, that can be that.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah, it can.
Because the
It
Bible
can
says
be
to
a
renew
sickness.
your mind daily in the Word of God, to renew
But
our
you
mind.
do that,
It's
yeah.
a mind battle, spiritual warfare that we're up against.
Take your medicine and serve the Lord. And ask the Lord to help you every day. I got up here today with low blood sugar. I couldn't hardly talk when I got started. And the Lord made it. Got me through it. And I'll be here at 4:30 if I can live that long to teach you from Hebrew this afternoon. If I can do it. But I'm struggling. I'm going to tell you something. I need your prayers. And we struggle with health issues, don't we? Some of us do. Some of you guys are the healthiest horses. Or healthy as an ox, you know. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate your attentiveness. I appreciate those of you who are enduring those hard seats. And go out and do something eternal. Take this lesson with you. What a lesson we came to today in a time like we live in today also. All right, brother, who's coming up here? Turn your loose on.
Oh, you can go first. You're announcing.
Oh, I forgot to say this before I get down here. I got an album here, my brother. I usually bring these at Christmas time. This is a gospel album. These are $10 a piece if you want them. This is my brother, Jimmy Phillips, who's got a name just like me. All right.
Sing it.
If you want some of those,
Have you ever been Fort Smith, Arkansas. We're gonna do